Next up, Halena Seiferling, who's going to be talking to us about living wage in British Columbia. Come on up.
Hello, thank you. Okay, I am ready to go. Hi everyone, thanks so much. I'm very excited to be here tonight to talk about the Living Wage for Families campaign and what we're doing here with living wages in BC. So first of all, by a quick show of hands, who is familiar with the idea of the living wage? Oh, good. Look at this. I love this room. So you're already quite familiar. I'll explain a little bit more about the details of it in a second for those who maybe aren't familiar. But first, I'd like you to take a minute to think about what your average day looks like. Perhaps you think first of the essential work that you do in your communities, meeting with constituents and community groups, learning about and voting on important issues, trying to create a more equitable, safe, and sustainable community. But you probably think as well of your personal life. Maybe you have a partner or children that you spend time with. Maybe you have hobbies you enjoy doing, activities you participate in, or friends that you meet up with, of course. Maybe you provide care for a family member or friend, or maybe you enjoy volunteering in your community. The living wage is rooted in this idea that life is more than work. When someone makes a living wage, it means they can afford to live in their community without living in poverty and without needing multiple jobs. It means they can do their work, be paid a fair value for that work, and then live a full life outside of work hours by having the time and the money to access and enjoy their communities. So let's get a bit more into the details of what the living wage is for those who aren't familiar. So we calculate the living wage based on the most common family type in BC, which is 2 parents with 2 children. In our calculation, both parents work full-time and both children need childcare. One is a 4-year-old child who needs full-time care, and one is a 7-year-old child who needs care when they're not in school. So what's in the living wage? We calculate regional costs for things like housing, food, transportation, and childcare. And we then factor in government taxes and transfers that would impact the family. So things like employment insurance and income tax and transfers, which would include things like tax credits and childcare subsidies. From this comprehensive look, we can then see what the cost of living is in the community, and therefore how much in wages each adult would need to earn in order to afford to get by. So in 2018, these were our living wages. We coordinated calculations in 17 communities across the province. So as you might be able to see, perhaps the numbers are a little bit small, but most living wages, all of them in fact, were quite a bit higher than the provincially mandated minimum wage. In the North Central region, the living wage there was $16.51 per hour, and that was the lowest. And the highest living wage was in Metro Vancouver at $20.91 an hour, just to give you a sense of the range of that. So clearly, it takes a lot to make ends meet in most BC communities. Housing tends to be the biggest expense in the calculation year after year, and childcare is also a major expense. So if you're thinking, isn't this a problem for the provincial government or the federal government? There's a lot that can be done, of course, at those levels, but another thing that can be done is for employers of all size, of all type, to become living wage employers, including municipal bodies like local governments and school boards. So of course, that's why I'm here tonight. So being a living wage employer means that you pay your staff and your contractors at least your regional living wage rate per hour. You also guarantee that with any major services that you contract for, so for example, things like food services or laundry, you make sure that those subcontractors are also paying their staff the living wage. And these are just a few photos, those were just a few photos of staff at some of our living wage employers across the province. I won't get into all the details here of the criteria and the certification process, but we can make it work for you, and you don't need to take my word for it. So this was a list here of 9 local governments across the province that have already become living wage employers. The first, of course, the first was the City of New Westminster. Yes. So there have been 9. New Westminster was first in 2011. Most recently, this was the District of Central Saanich just this past December. This was myself with Mayor Ryan Windsor, presenting them with their certificate there. It's been an exciting time. So overall, we've certified 146 employers of all sizes and industries in BC. Most recently, we certified 16 employers this past January, including companies working in healthcare, construction, technology, financial services, and community services. While about 2/3 of our employers are in the Metro Vancouver area, we're rapidly increasing the number of employers that we're seeing interest from across the province, and we're really excited to continue growing the campaign across the province. So what these 146 employers and 9 local governments are seeing is that being a living wage employer has immense benefits. While initially paying higher wages can seem difficult, in the long run, the benefits outweigh the costs. When staff are well paid and feel valued for their work, they tend to have higher morale and perform better, leading to increased productivity and even increased profitability for the employer. Staff are also more likely to stay at their job, meaning that employers will save on hiring and training for new employees. But of course, the most important benefit that we are looking for is ending working poverty for our neighbors and friends. Close to 500,000 British Columbians are still living in poverty, including 1 in 4 who work but don't make enough to live on. Moreover, 1 in 5 BC children continue to grow up in poverty, many of whom live with parents who work full-time all year. So these photos that I've been showing here are of what the living wage means to people, are photos from a rally we held at the City of Vancouver back in 2015, which was when they were first beginning their process of becoming a living wage employer. As I mentioned, the City of Vancouver certified in 2017, so this shows that it can actually take some time to become certified, and it should. It's important to thoroughly study what the costs would be and what the implications would be in your community. We generally recommend that staff do a full report before you pass any type of policy or to take any further steps, and we can help you in that process so that you really understand what is going to happen in your community before anything moves forward. So what's next? So right now we're in the process of calculating our 2019 living wages. In partnership with community organizations across the province, we're planning to have living wages for over 20 communities across the province this year. We are going to release our 2019 living wages on May 1st, so watch for that. And at that time, once we have the new living wages, we'll resume accepting applications from employers who are looking to certify in 2019. We know there are many employers who are on the path to becoming living wage employers in the next few years, including several local governments. So to close, I'll remind you again to think about the things that bring you joy day to day. Everyone deserves to live a life of dignity where they can access good housing opportunities without living in poverty or struggling to make ends meet. Paying living wages is one tangible way that we can be part of the solution to end working poverty. So thank you all. If your government is not a living wage employer, there's a sign-up sheet outside where you can learn more, including in a webinar we're going to hold in early May. Thank you very much.